Hey YouTube, how's it going? Kevin Cleary here with a knife video, and today we have the RealSteel Bushcraft folder. Now, this is going to be an interesting video because this is kind of an interesting knife. It is a Bushcraft design. You can see the zero grind there, and it's carried over into a folder. Now, obviously, RealSteel is not the only company doing this. There's a number of others, including probably most notably the Cold Steel Fin Wolf, but there are some others as well. I want to say Boker may have one. Anyway, I'm not going to spend time speculating about that. What I would like to hear from you guys in the comments below is what you like to carry in the bush. You know, this is a knife that's designed to be a folder that can be carried and used for bushcrafting tasks. Well, you know, that makes a lot of people uncomfortable, myself included, and we'll discuss that. You know, did they pull off what they were trying to do? But what I'd like to hear from you is what you carry in the bush. Do you carry a folder? Do you carry a fixed blade and a hatchet? Do you carry a folding saw? What is it? Maybe you carry an axe in a backpack. And of course, maybe you don't carry much at all in the bush, but that's okay because no one will know. This is the internet, so you can kind of put down there whatever you'd like to sort of speculate about. Anyway, now that we've kind of introduced this knife and what it's trying to do, we really do want to ask that question, you know, does it achieve or does it hit the target that it's aiming for? Now we'll start by doing that with size and weight. This knife is 8¼ inches long, so it's a little smaller than a lot of bushcraft knives. Obviously, because it's a folding knife, there are limitations related to blade to handle ratio. It's got to fold. So this blade is 3½ inches long. The handle is 4¾ when it's folded, it is about an inch. It's actually a little over 1¼ inch in width here. And the dimension that really is going to stand out is this one. This thing is extremely thick, 7/8 of an inch thick, so almost an inch thick. And if I put that beside another RealSteel, this is the RealSteel H6, similar in pretty much all the other dimensions, but you can see this is more normal for a folding knife. You know, this is the Bushcraft folder is almost twice as thick as the H6, okay, which is about ½ inch. Now, that is something that presents a particular challenge for a folding knife, and especially a folding knife we're going to carry all the time. Really, this is not a knife that you're going to pocket. It just is not a knife that carries nicely in the pocket in any variation, unless maybe you've got cargo pants. I know on one particular version of 511 pants, there's sort of a little Velcro pocket that can be used for a flashlight. This would work well in there. And that's about the only way I can think of carrying this in pocket. And guess what? RealSteel kind of knew that. And so this ships with, and really it actually comes in this sheath, which is designed to go on your belt. And so that's how this knife is designed to be carried, and for review purposes, that's how I carried it, right? I used their system because it's really not feasible to carry this in your pocket. It's just way too thick. And so this is how I carried it. And I will say this, there is some, what would you say? There is a level of comfort that comes with carrying a knife on your belt. And I'm sure, you know, your grandpa could probably tell you, you know, back in, you know, not that long ago, in fact, a lot of guys you'd see, you know, a fold over sheath like this with a button on it, much like this. And that's how everyone would carry their folding knife. Certainly guys who carried Buck 110s and stuff, they would need that because of the size and weight, you know, sort of a similar problem to what this one represents. So anyway, I carried it that way, and I will say that that is comfortable, but it totally removes the part of the discussion we normally have now, which is how does it fit in the pocket? Okay, the answer is it doesn't fit in your pocket. You have to carry it on your belt. And so if you're not into that, that does kind of remove this right away. The other thing we have to consider is this is never designed to be an EDC blade. It's designed to be a bushcraft blade that you're going to carry on your belt or strap to a pack or something else. And so those are all considerations we've got to include when we ask the question, how does this carry? And so with all of those considerations in mind, I've got to say that it's not uncomfortable to, you know, clip that sheath to your belt or strap that sheath to your belt and carry this knife. I didn't have any problem doing it. And if, of course, you've got to adjust the location from time to time, but once you get it in the right spot, sort of beside your hip, even getting in and out of the car and stuff like that is not that much of a problem. So From a carry standpoint, yes, it's too big and bulky to carry in pocket, but RealSteel knew that, and they accounted for it by providing a sheath. Let's move on now to the blade. All right, we've got a really nice blade shape here, sort of a drop point with a Scandi grind or zero grind. And if you don't know what that is, I'll turn the knife this way for you. Notice there's no secondary bevel. Okay, so the knife is just ground to nothing. Let me grab, since we've already had the H6 in here a minute ago, this is normally how it works. So there's your grind, your primary grind, and then you've got the secondary grind making your sharpened edge. With a Scandi grind, you don't get that. You've just got this ground right down to nothing. Now, the advantage to that is you get a knife that's extremely thin at the edge and slices and cuts into wood really, really nicely, which is why it's used for a bushcraft knife, for something you're going to be doing some carving with, okay? And I've got to say, this does work really well. Now, there are a couple things I want to address here. First off is the D2 steel. Because it's D2, it's not a stainless steel. You've got to take some care for oiling and stuff. And so one of the roles I could see this knife fitting in nicely is as a pack blade, or as a survival, a small survival kit blade. Because it folds down, you can fit this into a fairly small package. But the D2 steel, because it's not stainless, if you use this for that role, you're going to have to make sure you oil that D2 well before packing it away somewhere where it may sit. You know, if you're putting it in the bottom of a backpack or in a survival kit that goes in your car or something and just stays there, just keep that in mind because of the fact that the D2 could rust. The other thing about D2 is it has a reputation, when hardened well, to being a little bit chippy, and that a chippy steel and a propensity for chipping is going to be exacerbated by that super, super thin grind. Now, because I knew that, in my testing, I did a lot of, this kind of cutting where I'd cut in and then pry the wood out, and it held up really well. I have not sharpened this or anything since testing, and you can see there are no rolls, there's no real damage to that edge. And so, whether it be just the heat treat that RealSteel used, or whether it be that maybe the chippiness of D2, it doesn't reach that until it's hardened even more than this, or maybe that's just maybe it's a little overstated in the community. For whatever reason, this blade performed for me really, really well. And I've got to say this, if you're a bit of if you like a stupidly razor sharp edge and you become a bit of a snob about that, you will love a zero ground blade, because you can get these so screaming sharp that it's unbelievable. Okay, so there is a great deal of joy that I find the knife nerd in me finds by putting a retardedly insane edge on this. Okay, you can get a Scandi ground blade to such a fine edge that it's really a lot of fun for the person who really likes to go crazy with sharpening. And so I will give that consideration to the blade. Otherwise, I've got to say, this blade shape, it's nice and thick on the back. It's got tons of comfort for your thumb. The steel, of course, being D2, performs for me quite well in this role, even though I did have some questions about how well it was going to do. And so I've got to give the blade here top marks. Now, I did not baton with this, and really in any knife this size, I would not see it as something but that you could baton with. And I mean, I guess there's a little bit of an exception to that. I did take this and split up some kindling just by, and I'm sure you've done this before, just set it on the kindling and give it some thumps with the palm of your hand on those small pieces of kindling that split easily, and it did that quite well. Where this really shines, of course, is carving. And so if you're one of those guys who really likes to whittle, you may find a lot of joy in this knife. In addition to the fact that it'll get crazy sharp, it does work really nicely when you're cutting into wood. Now, what about other EDC tasks? As I said, this is not primarily designed as an EDC knife, but you would like to think that you could carry this and use it, you know, for cutting up your meat when you're camping. You could use it for peeling fruit or whatever, for some of those kitchen tasks that we do. And it works okay, all right? One of the issues with a Scandi ground blade is, you know, you do have a fairly abrupt angle here. So let's say you're slicing an apple in half, likely you're gonna get, you know, halfway through that apple and it's gonna split apart on you rather than actually cut apart. That's going to be true for most knives, though, outside of kitchen knives, which are designed fairly thinly and ground thinly just for that kind of slicing roll. All right, so the blade, I think, performed very well, and I really don't have any complaints about the blade other than theoretical complaints that D2 may not be the most suited for bushcrafting knives, but it seems to work just fine in my use with this particular knife. What about lockup and deployment? Now, this is where obviously we've got a bit of an issue, because a fixed blade bushcrafting knife would not fold at all, and you would have no issue with strength. This, however, achieves that by using a very thick liner and no lock bar cutout, and this is fairly positive. When you go to push this over, you're going to notice that it's a little stiffer than maybe some of the liner locks you've used, and that's to try and achieve a level of strength, and they've done a pretty good job with that. Of course, they've also added this very thick dual layer G10, which is going to add some strength as well. So is it a strong locking knife? Yes. However, it's still a locking knife, it's still a folding knife, and that does present a certain amount of weakness. It's nice and smooth, phosphor bronze washer and phosphor bronze and Teflon on one side, so it's sort of that two washer system that a number of companies are using. Gonzo seems to be one that does it all the time. You can flick it open with a little bit of wrist. I'm not sure if I can do it on camera. It worked out okay. One thing I will say is this is not a lefty friendly knife. They actually could have left this thumb stud off completely. It's really hard to get to. You can see I can do it, but I've really got to jam my thumb fat in there. They provided a cutout on this side, so it works really well. On the other side, though, if you're a lefty, yeah, it's really, really difficult to deploy left-handed. It's just, it doesn't allow your thumb to get to that thumb stud almost at all. Very, very difficult. Anyway, the other thing that I could have seen about this is you've got this thumb stud and it works well. It is removable, but it would have been nice, especially because, you know, this is not a knife that's really designed to be sort of a tactical, you know, one-hand opening knife anyway. You could have added, you know, some bit of traction down here, a bit of a nail nick or something, so that I could remove this completely and have this work as a two-handed knife, especially for places where that's a thing. All right. So anyway, lockup and deployment, very strong lock, nice and smooth. I have no complaint about it as a right-handed person, but I will say if you're a lefty, this is kind of a no-go. It's very difficult to open left-handed. Otherwise, I'm fairly impressed. Of course, there is this thing hanging over our heads where it is a locking, folding knife designed for bushcraft, which is kind of a questionable thing. Anyway, I guess the other thing I should say is, yeah, no side-to-side play, nice and solid knife, which I do like, and which is pretty typical for RealSteel. Honestly, when I get a RealSteel, I'm not expecting any blade play. Their level of quality and tolerances and all of that are very, very good, generally speaking. Okay, so what about this handle? This is one of the things that is going to get the most amount of attention if you're considering this as a bushcrafting tool. And I will say this, from a working knife standpoint, okay, the handle is amazing. Okay, it's extremely comfortable. Perhaps one of the most comfortable knife handles that I have used. The grip is almost a little bit rubbery and comfortable and big. You can really bear down on this and get a lot done. And so for all those things, ergonomically, the handle is a total win. However, on the other side of that coin, it is massive, okay? It's really, really big. So of course, it's easy to make a comfortable handle when it's like an inch thick, okay? Think about holding onto a barbell or a broomstick or anything else. They're all quite comfortable because just a big 1-inch round dowel is going to be pretty comfortable. And so certainly this is very, very comfortable, really nice from that perspective, but it is so thick and so overbuilt that it's a little bit overkill, I'm going to suggest. And let me say this, even with the zero grind, which not everyone prefers for EDC, if this handle were made with scales that were, a 1/16 or even an 1/8 of an inch thinner, I would honestly be singing the praises of this knife, and just telling everyone to buy it. If you just left, if you just left everything from here in, I don't know if you can see there where my thumbnails are. If you just left everything from here in, just leave this knife exactly as it is. Holy cow, if I can hold on to it. But, thin it down by, a good half, 3/16 of an inch or so, put a pocket clip on it, it would be amazing. It honestly would. So if anyone is watching from RealSteel, if you do a Bushcraft folder 2 or a Bushcraft pocket folder, just leave this knife exactly how it is and just thin out these scales, and this thing would be an absolute win. As it stands, that handle thickness is so big that it does make it a bit of a challenge. Okay, so now let's do some comparisons before I get to my overall take on the knife. Oh, I guess I should point out, very attractive, very well done G10, really, really nicely milled out on the inside, heavily milled out. Okay, and I love the way that red even kind of shows through. So the construction side of this handle, again, very, very good. Large lanyard hole back here. And I'm thinking, they're thinking of this as a working knife where you're going to put like a wrist loop on it. I'm sure that's the purpose for that large hole. Okay, so let's do some comparisons. First off will be the RealSteel H6. Different blade shape, obviously, but certainly more suited to an EDC roll, and wood is tough enough that a lot of outdoor sort of bushcrafty type tasks, this could achieve those. And of course, as a camp knife, as a food prep knife, is going to perform a little better. Next up, of course, the Rat Model 1, which was designed by Randall Adventure Training to be an outdoor use knife. Not a bushcraft knife, but a sort of an outdoor survival option. And this is in D2 steel as well. Again, I think this would work well as a knife to drop in a small survival kit and still give you a very capable knife. Again, oiling that D2 before you put it away and store it for long periods of time is going to be important. A folder that really stands out along these lines is the Ultimate Hunter. This knife is one of my favorite cold steel knives, 3D Machine G10, extremely usable blade, tons of utility. It's very thick, it's very strong. Now again, it's not a zero grind, but it is nice and thin behind the edge and is going to perform really well and has performed for me. I've carried this camping a lot and really, really like it for that role. And the bright side is it flexes nicely into an EDC roll as well. Now let's get to some knives that are actually, well, before we do that, we'll do one other sort of combo knife. The Charade SCHF 55, smaller, but again, this is a fixed blade, so you're going to be able to pound on this a little more harshly than you can on this, which does, make this a little more well suited to the hard use that can come with bushcrafting. And with this knife being fairly heavy, these fixed blades that I'm going to be showing you next are maybe closer in size and weight. So there's the RealSteel Bushcraft 2, D2 steel, really nice. This is one of the prettiest knives that I have. You've got that nice dual color G10, very smooth, very comfortable, really, really useful knife. And I will review this. It's just, I haven't had enough time to put the use on it that I want to yet. But overall, I'm pretty impressed with it. And this is, I think probably for most people out of these two, this is going to be the knife that people are going to lean to. And that makes total sense because for bushcrafting, generally speaking, a fixed blade is going to be superior. One more, now this is a little higher priced as well, but the Mora Garberg, again, is going to perform a lot of those bushcrafting tasks and be a little tougher. This is designed to be a pretty tough, heavy-duty knife, as is, by the way, the RealSteel Bushcraft knife. And so a lot of those guys are going to be better options, because when you try to make a knife like this, where it's trying to be sort of a jack of all trades, it ends up sometimes being a master of none. So what do I think about this knife overall? Well, I've got to give top marks for quality, for construction, for comfort. You know, in terms of a useful cutting tool, this absolutely is that, okay? Does it achieve, though, what it sets out to achieve, which is being a knife that you could essentially carry as a bushcrafting knife? And there, you know, it does have some limitations, okay? You're not going to baton with this. And I know even with other small knives, you're not really going to baton, but it is not maybe quite what it needs to be. I would like to see, you know, and here's why, guys, because if the size and weight were more like the size and weight of this, it would be a really, really good option. I'd say, hey, yeah, this is a really lightweight, pocketable option that will do most of your bushcrafting tasks. As it stands, you know, yeah, this will absolutely do most of your bushcrafting tasks, but you are, by adding the sheath and having a person wear this sort of outside, you're kind of putting it in the same category as this knife, which I also need to put on a sheath and carry on my belt, or this knife, which I also need to put on a sheath and carry on my belt, or this knife, which I have to put on a sheath and carry on my belt. And does it perform better than those other sheath carry options? And the answer to that is no. Okay, so the way that they really could have done this is to make this into a knife that would fit nicely in your pocket. And where they've kind of fallen down a little in the design is making it a knife that requires this sheath. So that's my take on the RealSteel Bushcraft folder. It is very well made, and if you're someone who really likes this or really feels the need for a knife like this, maybe in a survival kit, as I say, hey, don't hesitate. The quality is outstanding and the functionality is definitely there. However, if you're thinking of buying this as a replacement for something more like this, then I would say no, probably not the best choice. Then I would want to go with a fixed blade, proper bushcrafting knife, okay? Even, now I will say these bushcrafting knives that I've shown you are a bit of a step up from your typical Mora, but even your typical Mora is going to compete with this pretty well, and some of them will even be at a cheaper price point. So there you go, guys. Nice knife, well built, very functional, nice to use, and I enjoy having this knife, no question, but it doesn't quite live up to the name that is given to it, the Folding Bushcrafter. Hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button, and we will talk to you soon.